All right, good evening. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the City of Sandwich. Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2026. Meeting's called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Adam Arnett.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice.
Well, Clerk E, please call the roll.
Alderman Arnett.
Here.
Alderman Chun.
Here.
Alderman Danko.
Here.
Alderwoman Erickson. Here. Alderwoman Inman.
Here.
Alderman Ketchum.
Here.
Alderman Kreinbrink.
Here.
And Alderman Robinson.
All right, with the quorum present, we'll move on to the mayor's report. First item is item A. There's discussion that we're announcing that our flower bed program for our downtown business district is open. We have 14 locations that we've asked the community to come provide the plant of flowers and the maintenance of those throughout the spring and summer. And I believe we already have 5 or 6 people have already applied for some of the flower beds that have traditionally done that. So if you know someone out there or someone's listening tonight, there's an opportunity for you or your organization to assist the City of Sandwich.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
how does that work as far as do they provide the flowers? Do they provide how exactly does that work?
We always have, since we started the program, we have a budget for them. The one I'm looking at was 2024's budget. It was $700. It depends on the size of the location. Typically, the street department will go purchase the flowers and they can come pick them out and they deliver them. I know a couple of times that wasn't the way that it worked because there wasn't something available. And so I'd like us to follow that again where we have, and we try to put more perennials in. So every year they come up on their own. We're not buying flowers every year and buying more flowers. So I think we'll stay with that part of the program. And then we'll put the rain barrels out and they'll have to water them. And so the street department will bring the water to 2 locations and they'll just maintain them themselves.
Okay, and the only reason I was asking, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I think we are reimbursing people for what they bought out of stock. And I remember there was one person, they might have had multiple flower beds, but it was upwards of $1,000, if I remember correctly, for flowers. And when we only have budgeted $700 for the program,
Yeah.
I don't want to run into that problem again.
Yeah, especially the budget. So that'll be the budget we'll set, we'll have to follow and it'll all work out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Just a reminder that last week was Engineers Week. I know it says proclamation, but we didn't do one, sorry, Kurt. But we do want to recognize our engineers and the wonderful work they do for our city and our community, as well as HLR. It does some of our street work. So just want to recognize our engineers. It was February 22nd through 28th. Did you do anything special at work for Engineer Week? Does the EI do anything? You don't get a day off for Engineers Week or something? Okay. Every couple of years. All right, and then item C, just a reminder that we are part of the America 250. There's a group of individuals throughout our community that will be working as a community committee and to celebrate that. So the structure is the state of Illinois has the United States government has the national program. Each state has a state program. Each county has a county program. So I've been to Kendall's and I've listened to DeKalb's presentation. And our city will have one as well where we coordinate that effort throughout the city. And we'll end up with a landing page for the community on our website. And it'll just be part of a long celebration from May 15th through Veterans Day with activities spread throughout. Just an update on the search. So we agreed that we will do a search process. We do have some of those in that were provided to you. And so I know one of them came in last night. So please read through those. If you have questions of each firm, will you send those to me? We'd like a quick turnaround time. And then I think we'll come back at our next meeting, if not earlier. If we need to come earlier, we can always put something like a special meeting before your finance meeting or shortly thereafter to take action, if that's what we'd like to do. But I know reading through that, you might have some questions of each firm or just some clarification of their process. You can see they're similar but different. So if we could have something to me toward the end of the week, I'll reach out to those organizations for clarity, and then we will move forward with our process.
I've got a question. Because in our agenda, we have city administrator search update with possible action. Is that going to not take place then?
Well, I guess you could, but I think you just got some of the information, so I'm not sure everybody's had a chance to read through that or maybe provide follow-up questions.
Yeah, because some of the presentations, one's 7 pages, one's 24, one's 29, and monies are in varying areas.
Yeah, I read them all. I think I'd probably recommend that you look through those and see what they're going to provide. There might be a chance to go back to talk to them about some of those things. One of them provided a guidance of the process, where one of them just said, these are the areas that we cover, right? They're similar yet different. And I think if you look at those, just send me your questions, and then we'll figure out which one of those companies we want to engage. I just was hoping, I left it on that way because the one of them was supposed to get it to me sooner, but said that they were out of town, so I was hoping maybe Friday would give us a chance to see it, but the one came in last night, so. After I checked my email on Saturday or Sunday afternoon, so. Okay, but take your time. It's gonna be probably a process anyway. As you can see, that's gonna be several months to do that and do that correctly, so we'll just have to work through the process. All right, attorney report, Kleinthorpe Jenkins. So there is a solar issue that we'd like our legal to bring to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Included in tonight's packet is a memo from our firm regarding a petition in Kendall County for a proposed commercial solar facility near Griswold Springs Road. It is outside of city boundaries, but it is within the 1.5 miles of the city's corporate limits, so well within your planning area. The city does have some limited input because of that distance from the corporate boundaries. But there are some concerns that we recommend that you consider. Included at the end of the packet what could be a template letter that we would usually use in this type of situation. The biggest issues from the proposal are that the applicant seeking a variance from the county code requiring a municipality, or I'm sorry, the applicant to enter into an annexation or pre-annexation agreement with the adjacent municipality. If that were to be the case, and that were not waived, then we could see this development come into the city. And the second is the screening requirement variance that's being sought. So certainly the council does not have to act on it. The proposal could move forward, and the development likely has a strong likelihood of proceeding. But this is just it's a statutory notification that the county has to provide to the city. So when these come in, typically staff will look at them and bring them to council to indicate whether or not you'd want to bring a response. So if you have any questions for me, we can discuss. If you're adamant about us providing a comment, it just needs to be provided by the 17th of March. It can be in the format that's provided here, or I can work with staff to make some modifications to it as well.
I don't think it was in our packet. I don't see your letter.
It was on, Jeff sent something on the 25th, and the map and everything was in there. It's all the way closer to the bridge, going to Silver Springs.
I thought it was, maybe it's just a copy that I had at the end of, was my memorandum included in the committee of the whole packet? I thought it was. Okay.
I'm looking for
Everything
it.
was
Everything
included
you
in
sent
one on
me.
the 25th.
Sure. So
right.
just in summary, the proposed letter simply indicates that the city is in receipt of the proposed or of the application, that the city recognizes that solar is developing. It's continuing to be developed in the state, but that the city's position is that we would strongly consider that the county not move forward with the variance for an annexation or pre-annexation agreement, and to have concerns that the city has concerns about the screening or buffering requirement being not being a condition of the proposal. Other than that, like I said, the city is pretty limited on what it can do to prevent the type of development. But because it's in the planning area, if you could have some influence over what it looks like, how it's sited, this is the chance to do that. You're not an active participant in the actual process, but insofar as that you have an opportunity to say something, this is the time. So.
Right. The reason we pass that on is just hoping that maybe anytime these are close enough to the city to at least open that discussion and have a regular letter ready to go so that these are the options and on how we want to handle it. Because while the state has taken away our citing ability, it's certainly important to continue to pay attention to that and either invite them into the city or whatever we're going to do. So.
Right. And in part of my memo, I think I mentioned that, if a structure is like this or a use like this is established, it does then, of course, limit what is on that portion of property. It can also limit what is later cited around it, should adjacent properties seek to come into the city, or if the city were seeking to annex other areas around it. So this is an opportunity to have some say, but also just to be mindful of if these types of developments come up in the future.
I do have a question, because we're talking about annexation, pre-annexation, stuff like this. When you look at the map that was sent, it's literally far enough to where you open the map and you see Hale Street in Plano. So the likelihood that city would ever annex that is slim to none, I would have to think.
Right, it would be a pre-annexation agreement. It wouldn't be, in this case, because it's not adjacent to, it wouldn't be an annexation agreement, but sure.
It's still in that sphere of influence of the mile and a half, right? So still gives us a chance by law to weigh in on it, whether we feel it's a direct impact.
Right.
We're gonna have that problem, whether it's Plano or Salmonac, we're gonna, eventually run into some of these, at least we can give an opinion.
Yeah. And the county could read the, could read the comment from the city or from any other interested parties and simply decide to move forward and not give it any weight. That's just your opportunity to say something if you'd like it, so.
So it's on the regular meeting, just so you can decide if you want to give direction to send that or not. All right? All right, anything else?
Nothing further this time.
All right, the clerk's report,
Nothing this evening.
city administrator report,
I'll hold my comments for the second meeting.
city reports from departments, EMA, Tony Eberly.
So just a reminder that tomorrow is a tornado siren testing. We will have some rain later this week, but nothing severe is planned. And also the EMA team supported traffic control at Harvest Chapel for their baptismal services on Sunday. That's all that I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, Police Chief Senni.
The first thing I'll talk about is the cleaning bid. And it was all in your packet. So we went through the bid process of that. There were 3 that put in for it. Pew Pew Guru, Illinois Military Maintenance, and Vested Solutions. Pew Pew had a bid of $38,192 annually. Illinois Military Service, $8,580 annually. And then Vested Solutions, they submitted their bid, however, it was completely incomplete. So based on the bids, it would be the recommendation that we go with Illinois Military Maintenance. The owner, his name is Greg Salas. He is a resident of Earlville. He also provides cleaning services for the city of Peru, Caneville, and also Earlville Police Department and Earlville City Hall.
I do have one little thing. In the bid documents we provided for them to look at, one area it says the contractor will hereby propose to perform everything required to be performed, furnished, all labor, materials, tools, equipment. Another area of the bid document, it says supplies and equipment are provided by the city of Sandwich. Going forward, document bids like this, I'd just like to see us clean them up a little bit to where it doesn't contradict itself in 2 different areas. And then also, have some type of some requirement for certifications, because PPU actually puts in all their certifications, their credibilities. And when you read they're vastly more expensive, but they seem vastly more qualified.
Okay. All right, Chief, you had another item?
The next thing on there too is the discussion of the generator proposal. We are going to look to rebid that. I'll refer to the attorney for any clarification maybe made on that as he looked at the bid process on that.
Yeah, so this was released as an RFP, and because there was it may have been some confusion outwardly facing because the city's website indicated RFP versus a formal bid process. we made a determination with staff that we should reissue it, make it clear that it is a bid process. The statutory procedure did appear to be followed. We just didn't want the public to assume that it was like a directed RFP or rather than a publicly issued and then open bid. So we're working on amending the documents to indicate that it would be publicly bid, and we'll reopen it and indicate it on the website as well. And that will be done very shortly. And then I also made a suggestion to Chief this evening that there were two responses, that prior to it being reissued for bid, that we'd notify. He could notify both of the contractors, let them know that it's going to be opened very soon, posted very soon. That way, we assume that they'll probably respond again anyway. So.
Okay.
And then just my normal update, over the past 2 weeks, our department has remained active in the community. We attended several events, including cheer volleyball, police testing, lunch and learn, explorers, beanbag baseball. We continue to value these opportunities to connect with our residents outside of our enforcement situations. Just a note on the hiring front, police interviews are scheduled for this week. While we not have any lateral candidates, we do have 3 applicants who are already certified officers, which is encouraging, as this could possibly shorten the training timeline should one of them get hired. Our squad cars, they should be back at the police department by the end of this week. Once they'll return, they need to be lettered and rekeyed, and then they'll be fully deployed. We completed our first quarterly training, ensuring that our officers remain current with best practices. We also conducted a liquor compliance check in which one business was found to be non-compliant and issued a local ordinance violation. Also, we received through the Small Rural Tribal Grant Program a certificate of completion for our body-worn camera program and policy review, reaffirming our commitment to policy compliance and transparency. We're also working with that in particular organization to get grant funds back for our body cameras. And then looking ahead, our Easter egg hunt is scheduled for March 21st at the police department. Residents can sign up on our Facebook page. We encourage families to participate. And then lastly, I just want to thank the officers for the professionalism and dedication they show every day. They continue to serve this community with pride. If there are any other questions, I'll answer them.
What was the liquor compliance check?
What was it?
What was the offense?
The serving liquor to a minor.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other questions for Chief? All right, we will move on to the engineering report with Kurt Detman from EEI.
All right, some updates here. Pratt Road Bridge construction still on track to start at the beginning of April. The Railroad Street water system improvements, so we have plans essentially done. The ad was submitted to the paper. It goes out in the paper on Thursday. Plans have also been sent to the water superintendent and to Brady, the sanitary superintendent, so they can look through the plan, make sure they're comfortable with everything. They've already seen the layout and coordinating with Don as well. So getting all the contract docs all finalized and going out to bid on Thursday. We open on the 26th of March, and it will come before council the first week in April, or first meeting in April for approval of hopefully a contractor to do the work. Approximate estimate is roughly between 70 and 80,000. Depending on kind of bids we get from that, we'll see where it kind of comes in. Lastly, tomorrow we have the inspection with Dollar Tree with Ian, the building official. Go through any final coordination on their site, and hopefully all good. And we got some preliminary as-built from the surveyor, have coordinated some of those things and are waiting on final as-built from the engineer, which will be the final approval item for that project. So that's all I've got.
Okay, questions for Kurt?
Yep. So with well 2 being moved, and that's the only well that we actually filter inside that building, once we move it and we get it down to the other plant, what's the possibility of us being able to raise that building? I understand that we have power coming out of that building to the wells. Is there another way that we can possibly power the wells without that building standing? I know we were worried about the structure of the building this past winter. So I'm wondering what we can do with the structure of that building before next winter.
You're asking if there's something we can do with the building once we get the relocation done, or?
Yeah, because it's the only well that actually gets filtered inside that building.
Yes. Well, I'll have to get back to you on that if there is.
Okay.
Adam, I do know that well one sits inside that building.
it's
While we
inside
don't
of it, but
process it there, we still will want to be able to access it most likely.
I
So,
mean, once that building gone, access is gonna be pretty easy.
yeah, it'd just be a pitless tip, I believe. So, okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, moving on to unfinished business, ordinance 202605. This is an ordinance amending various sections of the Sandwich Municipal Code related to a variety of fee structures, related permits and licenses granted under the provision of the Sandwich Code. This is presented for first reading. You will have a chance at the next regular meeting if you want to waive those. I thought it'd probably be good if we go through there and see if there's any more questions on the fees that have been prepared for your review under the ordinance.
I noticed that on the liquor one, E was also supposed to go up 300. That was one of the ones that I had mentioned. That is the restaurant license. If people didn't have the list in front of them, but E is restaurant license. It was $1,300 and that should be at $1,600. But I did note that one at both meetings.
E wasn't initially mentioned at the last meeting. I went back through the recording. We could certainly add it.
I had it on my list that I was reading off of, both the last two meetings. Originally, it was the $200 that I was suggesting, and then I went to the 300. So if I didn't reiterate that it was the last one listed, but I did have it on my list, and when I was reviewing the list, that's one I noticed. So
Okay, so that's to be 1,600?
it should be because, I mean, again, that's up to the council, but, I mean, basically, we've got two restaurants, which are basically bars. One's Bull Moose and the other's Santa Fe. And they have a restaurant license, which is a cheaper license than a regular Class A liquor license. And it was already cheaper by a couple $100. And like I said, it made sense, and I thought it was fair for all of those similar ones for the $300. And that's, I can go through again all of them if you want me to list off what they are and who they are, but.
Okay, so Richard's recommendation is $1,300 to $1,600 for the E license.
It would just be in line with the same as what we did with the Class A, the B, the C1, I, which is the hotel, J, that's the golf course, and then E, which are the restaurant licenses.
Okay, any other items that you see that you'd like to discuss in the fees?
Section 9 for the food truck. We went from, on the ordinance, from 100 to 150. As I understand, that should be 250.
Okay. All right, any other areas?
Well, section, what is it, 7, 8, and 10? They're the same, so I don't know what was supposed to be there.
They seem to be a duplicate.
They're duplicates, but we don't have the pool tables or the dart boards and the jukebox in there.
Are you looking at the attorney?
I'm,
Looks like those are, those may be a duplicate, so it would be just 7 would be applicable.
Right, but didn't we run into a problem with the combining all those, the dartboards and the amusement games and things like that?
We did, because the discussion originally revolved around making changes to the fees, but then also potentially removing particular portions of the licensing provisions or adding some licensing provisions. So in conversations with Administrator Penman, we determined it was probably best to move forward with the fees now. There are some licensing provisions that were discussed at the last council meeting that we want to make sure that the city, as an on-home unit of government, actually does have the ability to license. And then if so, we'll bring back a further ordinance with those as well. I do think that 8 and 9, or I'm sorry, it would be 8 and 10 would be duplicates of what are 7. So those could be removed and the remainder of the sections just renumbered.
Okay. So it sounds like this is probably just gonna be our first reading.
I do have a question on the different building fees, water tap fees, sanitary tap fees, whatnot. Because I had talked with last council about trying to keep the fees in line with other municipalities that are close to us or a little bit lower to encourage building to come here. Where are we at with that? Because I read a lot of the fees, but I didn't see any comparative documentation. All I saw was fee raised, fee raised, fee raised.
I thought my understanding was, Jeff took a look at those and Kurt had read off some of those at the meeting that we had, and somewhere in between there is where the fees ended up. I don't know if we did a full comparative study and gave you a report. My understanding was is they discussed those, and that's what they submitted.
So is there a way we could get an email with the documentation of what other municipalities have compared to what we're trying to raise ours to?
You could, this is just gonna be first reading then, since we have some changes had to be made, so I'm sure we can get that out.
That'd be great.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, why are we going from 100 to 250 for the vendors? That seemed like a pretty big steep
What's the
increase.
item number so we can all go look at it?
Section 9.
Your question is, why did we go from the 100?
Yeah, we're going from 100 to 250. That seems pretty steep.
I think that was the council's consensus.
Was it?
It actually was a higher number when we started. I think it was 500.
And the 500 was for stationary. This is mobile.
The mobile. I don't know, Denise, I think, went back and listened to the tape to verify all this. Seemed to be
I
the,
thought what
We
ended
did.
up happening is by the time that you looked at all the nuts and bolts of putting it all together, right? Those were the hours that you kind of came up to, and it was like in excess of a couple $100 of staff time to process everything, was it not?
That's true, and I did go back and listen to the recording on that because I misunderstood it as well and reached out to several of you. And exactly what you're saying, Alderman Kreinbrink, it was the issues we had with other food trucks that it was concluded to go with $250 as an annual fee for the mobile food trucks this year.
They can still buy the individual,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Right, but this is the setup for the individual that might want to go to 25 events in town.
Right.
yep,
Thank you. Just one little clarification, that's all.
okay. Other comments, questions?
What did the stationary food vendor one end up as?
That's going to be discussed.
Thank you.
That one's in here, right?
I don't see it.
I don't see it, but I was hoping somebody would say, yeah, it's on page 2.
It's in committee of the whole as a discussion under item D.
Okay, anything else for fees? All right, then we'll consider that the first reading. Move on to item A. This is a first reading as well, which the recommendation from the clerk is that you waive it at the regular meeting. This is ordinance 202604. It's entitled an ordinance correcting the scrivener's error regarding the subject property address for the zoning map amendment that was listed in ordinance 202601. It was an ordinance approving a zoning map for property located at 2300 East Church Street. And from B3 to R5 for 55 and older development. So the clerk has asked that you accept the change of scrivener's error and that you waive the first reading when we get to that in the regular meeting. Any questions on 11A? Okay. Item B, I already gave you the update, so that's taken care of. Item C again would be if you're going to accept the council's recommendation to send a zoning petition over for as 206-207 commercial solar facilities. And then the last item we have is item D, that's our discussion on the food vendor licensing. Okay, floor is open to discuss that item. I think that was added by somebody from one of the council members, right? Or Denise?
Actually, it was a attorney recommendation. We need to discuss that a little bit further. The recommendation is $500 for a food truck that is stationary. Questions were raised, how far from another building, ADA compliance, how do we enforce it? More of a definition as to what a stationary food truck would be, and it's all yours to discuss.
I do have a question. So if we're talking about stationary, as long as they have legal license plates, as long as they have something that can be towed, whether it is or is not towed, how do we consider that stationary if?
Right, so what some communities have done, especially non-home rule municipalities who have limited abilities to license certain types of establishments, we've seen designating zones where, at least if they're mobile, where they can be located. Now, that doesn't mean that it couldn't apply to a stationary facility as long if it was located in that specific zone, a food truck zone, let's say. If you wanted to, you could, because you don't anticipate that the vendor is going to be moving, you could, rather than require them to move or only allow them to be located at that one spot a certain amount of times per month, you can just say that they can only operate so many times per month. The problem there is that you have to have enforcement ability to have somebody checking and making sure and tallying when they're actually operating. The other consideration is, as the clerk indicated, is determining where, let's say, a zone would be in relation to other brick and mortar facilities, because this became a kind of a bigger concern when there were restrictions on in-person service during COVID. Municipalities wanted to, and it sounds like the city may have also addressed this as well, wanted to encourage folks to come out and still be able to get food in town, but not knowing that they couldn't go and sit down and maybe even didn't have the ability to walk up to some places because the restaurants themselves didn't have the opportunity to stay open. So the way that I would suggest addressing it is to come up with some reasonable restrictions, whether it's location, timing, and then obviously requiring health and sanitation inspection to go along with it. That way, it's not technically a license; it's more of a registration. And if there are other considerations that you're thinking about, you can run it by us, and we can determine it in the end whether or not you'd have the authority to regulate in that area. So.
Okay, other questions or comments?
I think the reason why we went, or I was pitching for the 500 is because it's seasonal, right? There's typically not year-round. They're not connecting to a sewer and water connection, so there's no cost, or any kind of benefit for utilities to the city. We have had issues with other businesses in town that have similar flares, and what ends up happening is they're upset that they're taking their business away from them. And the sales tax revenue, I mean, we've talked with Denise, like, where do we stand with that? How is it really impacting our community? And then the other side of that is the aesthetics. Like, we ran into a lot of issues with one of the vendors, right, Don? Mm-hmm. Where generator issues, noise, cleanliness, positioning, location, and everything like that. It was more of a hindrance to us than a benefit. So with that being said, we were able to get through all that. However, the $100 that was charged to them to make that happen, the other one is $250 now. This is $100. There should be more skin in the game if they're here for a longer period of time. And I think, like you talked about, they could potentially stay in a location for up to 2 days and then maybe have to move to a different location per se, but they're all, the two that we have are in the same location for the duration of time until they decide to leave and go somewhere else for the season.
Well, I think though, I mean, is there something in our code for mobile? Like they can only stay somewhere for like 2 days or 3 days and then they have to go, or is there nothing in there? So I think maybe that's what you say. Your stationary is there, but everybody else, if you're a mobile, you get 1 or 2 days and then you can't be back for, so many days. Something like that. I mean, you should have a time limit that you can, that'll differentiate between, if you're a mobile or you're a stationary. I mean, if they want to be there 5 days a week, then you're stationary. If you're, here once or twice, then you're mobile.
I have 3 applications right now for stationary sites that I am sitting on.
And just to be clear, the stationary sites have to be on private property. They cannot be on city property.
That is correct.
Yeah, the other thing with the one-time uses, they typically come into Denise's office and apply for like an event in town, right? We know it's connected to the event. Event's only so many days, then we issue it for that one occurrence. But we can look into and see if there's some other language, Janelle, we can put in there that says, you're only allowed for either up to blank days of the event or.
Well, or, let's just throw out vines. Somebody's there, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that'd fall under mobile because you're not there, enough to. But if somebody's set up shop for 2 days, I don't think that'd be considered stationary. But if you're there, 4 or 5 days a week at one place, and you just go home on the weekend, you're pretty stationary.
Yeah, we can look at definitions too, I think, and time frame. So, okay. All right, other discussion on item D, the stationary food vendor license. The amount's 500. Okay. Let's go to all the person reports. Alderman Arnett.
I just want to let you know that sludge hauling is out for bid. Bid opening is March 10th. And then I want to go over, because I know we've discussed it, previous councils, the need for employees for water. I know we're relying on a 0.5 for water and sanitary, and Don and I meet with our superintendents regularly. Both of our superintendents are stating to us, and we have asked them for documentation on the hours needed, the tasks needed on site, and we will have that I'm gonna call Brad tomorrow, because I'd like to have it Thursday for the budget meeting to present to everybody at the budget committee. The one additional employee we're asking for water gives sanitary back their 0.5. And according to Brad, him losing one employee from site for 2.5 days a week is going to start hurting the operations that he has going on there. And we just put a new plant in, so the last thing I want to see us do as a city is start harming it. Not only that, but it would sure be nice as us as a city. We already know that our water infrastructure is in dire need of help. So adding that one person there to start climbing out of the ditch that it's in would be kind of nice. Keep our sanitary plant running, build our water plant forward.
So here's what I don't understand, Adam, and I really need Brad to explain this to me. We spent $14 million on that plant to make it more efficient. And before that, only 2 people ran that plant. The other part of that too is that when we brought in the extra half FTE, it was to free the superintendent up to go out and do grease trap inspections and have a schedule. That's never gotten done either, so.
Well, that's why I've asked him for a report.
Well, I don't know why all of a sudden now we need more people when we have a more efficient plant, so I need to better understand like where that's coming from. Water, I certainly get. The things that we have with water, that's probably an area that needs to expand. Especially we're gonna try to carry out a lot of initiatives with new meters and reading and software. But the wastewater plant's a tough one for me to accept because of, you spend $14 million, there should be more efficiencies in that plant. We added the SCADA, so it could be controlled differently and controlled from a phone, so they had better access to make adjustments, so that's kind of a tough one for me to accept, so I'm gonna really need some information
The
that.
things they're doing aren't just in the plant though.
Well, I get that, but that should have made a lot more efficiencies down there to free up some of the man hours that we have. So I don't know where this is all coming from, but some of this is like new to me.
Well, that's why Don and I both have asked Jimmy and Brad for a report, so we can bring it to council and present it.
Well, Jimmy, I told him he hadn't been here long enough to really understand, so I hope he puts a little more time and grade before he understands some of our needs. We might have a better understanding than what he does, and certainly Josh does, so I would like to see that because it is justifiable. All right, anything else?
No.
All right, Alderman Chunt?
Yeah, Nick was saying that they're gonna be doing some ditch cleaning as you're coming into towns and stuff like that, getting the trash out of the ditches now that it's warming up a little bit. He's working on possibly doing the third week of March, doing another leaf pickup for everybody. Now that the leaf machine's back up and running and everything's starting to dry out a little bit, and it got cut short this past season. And the building got fixed over there, it's no longer bowing out. So that's a good thing. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Danko?
The fire hydrant was repaired over by Arts. They turned that also into a training class, so if anybody was wondering why 6 people were standing around on one repair, it was actually a training. They were doing training on the parts, and so that's up and going, and I applaud them for taking the time, and when they're doing the work, they actually train the rest of the crew, so that was good news. So that's all I got.
Okay, Alderwoman Erickson?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Alderwoman Inman?
Nothing right now, thank you.
Alderman Ketchum?
Nothing at the moment, thank you.
Alderman Kreinbrink?
Just a reminder that we have our meeting here on Saturday, March 21st to go over our SWOT analysis and stuff. Did you get a time yet, Jeff, on when that was gonna happen? Was it 8 a.m.? Okay.
Didn't give me a
We'll
time
circle
on that
back around with a time on that one. We do have another budget meeting that we're going to hold this Thursday at 4:30 here in Annex. I think one of the issues that we have here is when I looked at the numbers here for the sewer budget, I didn't see any additional personnel added in here. It was just discussed, so that number is not factored into their budget. So that would have to be an amendment to that. In reference to the additional person in the water department, that was brought forth to the committee on Wednesday of last week. I did push back a little bit with the fact that with Jimmy not being in there long enough, in my opinion, to make an informed decision, I feel that he needs to get a little bit of time underneath his belt to figure out what needs to be done in that department. I'd really like to know what is not being done and what needs to be done, and also, like, what are our measurables to make sure that we have operational efficiency over there. We've been supplementing with the half person, and Brad and Jimmy have come up to a consensus as to what's going to work, and that was nice that those two are working together. So that's my personal opinion. It was noted in the dollars and cents that the budget is not going to be balanced, and we do have a deficit as we're trending forward here. And Wes from Lauterbach and Amen brought forth the fact that the possible only solution without making drastic cuts is to take a loan from our sewer reserve fund in order to balance that budget. And part of me doesn't really like that, because if all honesty, if we're borrowing to pay off a debt that we don't have the revenue to support, how are we gonna pay that back? The only way you're gonna do that is by additional budget cuts later on. So we really need to look at these numbers, these dollars and these cents, and come to a consensus as to where we stand and what needs to take place. So I know I'd love to add bodies, I know I'd like to be able to do it, but if we don't have the money to support it, we're gonna have an issue.
I would have to agree, but the thing is with Jimmy and our sanitary plant, we spend $14 million on something, we want to keep it running. If we don't give the guys the things they need to do, and they came to a consensus of what would work, what would stretch them thin, is what they came to a consensus of. And with Jimmy, I mean, we can't give a guy a boat with holes in it and say, well, you need to figure out how that boat works before we can give you a new boat. I mean, because we know the water is not good. The valves aren't good, the hydrants aren't good.
Yeah,
There's so many
I
things
think-
in,
I think right now, like, he sees the boat, right? He needs to get it water ready. So he needs to make sure that it's got the right fuel, it's got the right buoyancy, it's got the right certifications on it to go into the water versus throwing it in the water and making sure it goes. Like, he's got to test it first, in my opinion. So I'm not saying that we can't go back later on and adjust the budget, but we need to know what we really need before we need to implement a plan. And right now, alls we're saying is we're short-staffed. Well, how are we short-staffed? Going back to what the mayor says, how are we going to prove that it's really what we need? Do we really need 2 bodies? We might need 2 bodies when it's all said and done. Then we got to come up with Plan B. Because why put a half-baked good into the oven? We need to figure out how we're going to make this work.
that's the
So-
thing, is look at Plano, they've got 6.
So what I'm getting at, though, is when you look at the size of their plants and look at the size of their infrastructure and the number of their citizens, I mean, they're double the size of us.
But they're
So-
being proactive about their system.
But look at the size, I mean, just operationally, they're a lot bigger. So, I mean, that's going to happen. And they also have the revenue coming in, because there were changes put into place years ago by them that we didn't do, right?
I
So,
wish we had Walmart.
you know, I don't just say it's Walmart. That's not the only thing. I mean, there's rate changes that should have been put in place years ago that would have safeguarded us from going into the hole. So, at this point, we need to come up with the best case solution to make this work. And I'm not saying I'm totally against it, but come together with a formalized plan of how this is gonna work and how we're going to be able to afford it. That's number one.
The personnel policy, first of all, says that any superintendent that wants to increase their FTE has to write a written proposal to me. That's what it says. I can think of very few times we've ever had that done. And I agree with Fred, we gotta figure out how to pay for it. I mean, I don't know that it's in there, I just asked Denise, you know, we talked about a quarterly increase in our sewer billing from $10 to $20. That's a difference of $108,000 to $216,000. We're looking at paying the loan on our sewer plant, plus making changes and hiring staff. Well, that's gotta come from somewhere. They put it right up where water is, and we know that water is a challenge too, because we have to pay, you know, we're looking at Main Street, that was a water upgrade, that was a sewer upgrade, that was a storm sewer upgrade, everything got upgraded. It's gotta come from somewhere, and I don't know that that's in here, but that's something that needs to be in this document to at least be voted on, because I'm gonna guarantee you, looking at the payment plan for that sewer plant, we're gonna need every dollar that we need to be more efficient and pay our bills and start banking a little bit of that for other things that we don't plan for that break.
Right, and to go in with that, like some of the things that we talked about in the budget committee, specifically towards the water, was the lead service. Like, how are we going to fund that, right? And some of the thought process that we put into that is some of the other municipalities are allowing plastic lines to go in versus the copper. The copper is astronomically high right now based upon supply and demand. So is that something that we could potentially go to lower the cost? Because the product itself is exponentially high. The labor's gonna be the same to put it in, but the materials are gonna be a lot higher. So is that an opportunity for us? That's something that has to go back into the building department to talk about what's the pros, what's the cons of doing that. So,
I can tell you right now, plastic's a bad idea. I think you stay what's tried and true. It's cost more, it's copper, but it's true, it works, and it's not gonna rot.
And that's the thing, when we were talking about our water rates and whatnot, we already had conversation plastic versus type K copper, and Kurt actually made the recommendation not to go to plastic.
yeah, I think a real, I could be wrong, is a roll of copper right now like $2,700?
We're about $1,000 per service.
Okay, and 500 feet of the plastic is like $250?
So we're saving $750 a house.
But you're not putting 500 feet into a house service.
Well, the thing is once again, we had
So,
the conversation copper
this is-
versus plastic previously, and our own engineer said he didn't think we should be doing plastic.
Correct, but I go to other municipalities to the east here, and they're putting that stuff in the ground in brand-new subdivisions, left and right. I mean, that's the primary product that's going in the ground right now.
Maybe that's a choice you give
You know,
them. since
so
we have
what
a
I'm getting at is,
program.
that's an opportunity for our cost to reduce, the customer's cost to reduce, and still provide a good product. So, I mean, I don't know too many farms out here right now that everything's in copper. Typically, everything was ran into with the black PVC in the ground, and it's wellheads, everything that's going down to the well is plastic. It's not copper going into the well. So I don't know how many of those fail, but they pump thousands and thousands of gallons of water, and they haven't had an issue with it. So I know my uncle's farm, we put that in the ground, and that's all it was in the ground, was all that, the black PVC years ago, and it's worked fine. So I'm just thinking that as a cost potential savings to get more for the bang for the buck, and if it's allowable in other municipalities, why wouldn't we make a change or an exception to try to get more completed and still keep the customers, you know, with good water service? So those were some of the things that we talked about. You should have got minutes from the last meeting, the first meeting sent out. Did anybody have any questions on that from Jeff? And then now that we had the minutes signed and everything like that, Jeff was gonna send out the meeting. I don't know if you got around to doing that yet, Jeff?
I didn't, I was waiting for our meeting Thursday, and then we were gonna send it all
Okay.
at once, so that, because we had put it in boxes and then.
Yeah, so everything's gonna be emailed, so
make
we have
sure it's all
electronic
together.
format there. Does anybody have any questions with the budget? No. And then the last thing I have, agendas. The agendas that we get, they're hit and miss. They're missing information. For instance, the attorney information wasn't in the main agenda tonight. It wasn't strung together real nice how it was in the past. I mean, what Jeff sent out as a supplement had everything strung together. But I would really like to see it put in that format with that, is it Muni code
Yes.
that you do it in? I think that has to be the way that it is, because there's so many variances of these PDFs that we get, that I'm afraid that in one meeting, we're seeing one document, in another meeting, we're seeing another document. If it's all strung together, you know exactly what you have because it's at face value. I don't know what the rest of the board's thoughts are.
I don't understand what you're saying as far as it's not the same or you don't have as much information.
So, you know, like right now, like the agenda that Denise sent out
Right.
for this meeting, it was all in individual documents.
Okay?
Versus when it's sent out with the Muni code, it's each meeting has its own and everything's strung together.
Okay. All I know is I got it for sure. This way, I'm not sure why with all the attachments, but when we have a 150 or 170 page document for a meeting and it's repetitive, that some of these items are in both documents, to me, that doesn't make sense because that one memo is gonna be in between a 24-page document and a 30-page document that could very easily get overlooked by a council member because it's hidden in the 175 pages. So I've got no problem seeing it like that. That could just be personal preference though, as far as how you do it. I know no doubt in my mind though, that if I'm looking up a certain ordinance, if I'm clicking on that box and it says that's what that ordinance is, that should be the whole thing. When we are getting it in the form before, which was very informative, but again, when you're looking through stuff and it's 170 pages for a committee of whole meeting, 120 pages for the other, and you're getting the 15 pages of finance in both of them, you don't need that. You already got the finance
And I get
one.
what you're
Shouldn't
saying.
be.
I mean, some of those you have to run that way just because in one you're talking about and the other one you're voting on it. So that's the way it goes. You're basically getting it all in one location though, so you know exactly what you have. We've had instances where one resolution or one ordinance is in one meeting and then 2 weeks later, there's a change and it wasn't the same one, you know? But if it's all strung together in a binder format, where they're all listed, you know exactly what you have. And that's the way that I preferred, that's the way a couple of the other council members preferred, and I'd like to try to get to that, only because ultimately that's what's going to be posted as the minutes, is it not? It's gonna be posted to the public, they can see everything that we're talking about too, for transparency.
Well, I think they got all this, so I mean, I wouldn't throw transparency out there other than that it's a, word to throw out.
I'm not trying to use transparency in the way that some people throw it. I'm trying to just say that anybody, if there's a question, they know exactly what they're going to, just like all those ordinance changes here where we had red lines on so forth, you know. It'd just be nice to have it all in one spot versus having 15 different PDFs that you have to open and look at.
Okay, what else you got, Fred?
That's it.
Okay, Rich? Alderman Robinson?
I was just gonna bring up that I still have two questions about the code stuff that we're doing. I might not have understood, but when we were talking about the chapter 10 amusements and entertainment, I know they said there's a duplication here of a bunch of different things, but the three specifically that I thought we were talking about as far as trying to simplify, because we're getting rid of a bunch of junk, and for lack of a better term, calling it just the amusement license, which covered all coin operated. So it would be the old section, chapter 110-67, which was jukebox, chapter 10-117 pool tables, and chapter 10-188, and I gotta remember what I put for that, just regular coin operated amusement device. So I think I mentioned last time, but that could be a dart board, it could be a video game such as Golden Tee or the Old Defender, or Pong or Pac-Man, pinball, air hockey game, claw machine. All of those is what we were talking about. So we were already charging people individually for all of those before, so I don't think it's gonna have anything to do, my opinion, home rule versus non-home rule or whatever. And if we're just getting rid of stuff, but I didn't want it to get lost somewhere before we're voting on it in 2 weeks, because the ones that are probably the most important are gonna be the liquor ones, the amusement, and the gaming, which Denise is gonna be sending out here shortly to everybody so they can renew by May 1st. The other thing I was gonna mention about the one liquor license, and again, just reviewing, the video gaming one, I'm looking at 3 different documents here, and then 2 of the documents that we have listed at $1,500, and one of the documents I have is listing it at $1,200 for that license, and the one that's listing it as $1,200 actually has the ordinance listed behind it, which was created by ordinance 2012-20. So again, I don't know if we ever raised it from the original 1,200 to 1,500 at some point. I don't recall. But when I'm looking at the stuff that's been presented over the last couple of weeks, I'm just trying to make sure that, like you said, Fred, I'm looking at one number and I know that that's the one. So I only wanted to bring it up because if I'm confused on this, and I try to stay up to date on this so I'm knowledgeable about who's who and what's what, I thought I'd bring it up if I'm confused, so.
So you said K, correct?
K, yes,
Yeah,
and
so-
basically the K license is a standalone gaming parlors. We only have 2 in town. We don't have any other licenses available for that, even though people ask on a daily or weekly basis if we have that.
Yep, so I have 1,500 to 1,800, that's what I have. And then he said that she has it as currently 1,500, and the recommendation was to move that to 1,800.
It's currently 1,500 to increase to 1,800.
Do you remember when it got raised from the 1,200 to 1,500? Because what I was looking at was your actual liquor licenses that were issued May 1st, 2025. That has all of the license numbers with the actual businesses listed. And the K licenses list $1,200 a license. And K1 is Sherbet, which is Lily's place, and license K2 is VMR Consulting, which is Lulu's. So that's why I'm just curious.
I don't have a current one. I do on my computer because I looked that up when you questioned it. That license was created in 2012.
Right.
At 1,200, and then it was amended.
It was, okay, and that's all I want to make sure is that it was amended, because I didn't see that
Yes.
anywhere in here, so.
And that's when it was increased to 15.
15, all right, so that would be the 1,500 to 1,800 then, so. I apologize for the confusion, but I didn't see the amendment, so, thank you.
And Alderman, on the issue of the overall amusement license, let's say, that's an issue that colleague Troy and I are looking into, because the individual sections you have now, pool table, coin-operated devices, things like those, they're specifically called out in statute, so it's a fee. You have the ability to license those individual pool tables, let's say, or a, you know, gumball machine, things like that. We want to determine and be comfortable with whether or not you can combine all those and then say it's it's a fee for that type of amusement use versus that specific device. Because then we're kind of treading into the waters of, well, is this a license for something that you don't have the authority to control? If we can do that, and we essentially create a menu of different devices that would fall under one fee, then that's something we'll bring to council. But if we determine that that's not something we can combine, we'll provide that opinion.
And again, the whole idea was because we were raising the other
Right.
fees and everything, we were just trying to create it because somebody that has 10 pool tables, and if we're raising that fee up and they're spending now, you know, $50 per pool table or something, they're spending a lot of money.
Right.
As opposed to if we just did the straight across the board, so you could have everything.
And it's also difficult to go in and police, well, how many pool tables do you have? How many gumball machines do you have? How many, you know?
And that's the other problem, because we don't have people to do that, so it's a matter of just having a license and they can have whatever they want of that category of things. So,
And if we determine that you have that authority, well, that's something
Okay.
we'll bring forth.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that is all of our older persons' reports. Any announcements? Audience comments? Okay, hearing none, motion adjourned the committee of the whole meeting?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Robinson, is there a second? Alderman Ketchum, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I